Hello everyone, welcome to the new class. After the previous class, we had discussed about various series of line spectrum which are formed by the hydrogen atom, Lyman, Balmer, Paschen, Brackett, and Fun. And we also went through the equation which helped us to find out the uh, wave number or the particular value of these particular scenarios or in which spectral region they are coming under. Today's topic is to understand an important concept about Bohr model, Bohr's atomic model. Whatever uh, strategy we are applying to write the atomic number of any atom or any element and writing the concerned elements configuration in which orbit how many electrons are present, how many electrons are present in the next orbit. All these concepts are being discussed by Bohr's model. We know that if we have a nucleus present, then surrounding the nucleus there will be some electrons, negatively charged particles. Now, how much electrons can come in one single orbit? How much electrons will, if it is not accommodated in one orbit, how many much orbits can be included? All these concepts was actually given by the model by name Bohr's model. This was just a starting. This model was just a hint of what I said now. How many orbits would come, how many electrons would come. This model was just a starting. Okay, because from this model only we got to know that what could be the number of orbits or what could be the number of electrons that can be present. Now, speaking further, the scientist who was behind this Bohr's model was Neil Bohr. The name of the scientist was Neil Bohr. In 1913, he found some specific rules regarding the structure of hydrogen atom, or he actually did the experiment mainly on the basis of hydrogen atom spectral line. On the basis of line spectra of hydrogen, he did some experiments, and on the basis of those experiments he found out some rules or some of the postulates that had been mentioned here. We will discuss that postulates one by one. The very first thing that he told was electron, which is found in the atom, basically in the hydrogen atom. He did the experiment in hydrogen atom, so we will say the electrons in the hydrogen atom actually moved around the nucleus. The same thing that Rutherford concluded from his experiment, the same thing he also said. Electrons are actually moving around. This is the nucleus, this is the electron that is actually moving around the nucleus, and it is moving in a fixed path. It is moving in this fixed path that we can see. This fixed path were known as orbit, or we can say stationary states, or we can say allowed energy states. There were different names defined for it, but we will name it as orbit. Just like the solar system model, all the planets would revolve around the sun in an orbit. Similarly, all electrons revolve around the nucleus in a circular path, which is known as orbit. Now, speaking further, he said one more thing. Uh, as the time passes away, the energy of the electron, which is found in the orbit, it will not change. The energy will be the same. But still, if the electron is moving from lower energy level state or lower orbit to higher orbit, sometimes the transfer of electrons also takes place from. Sometimes what happens if there are 2 or 3 orbits present, then at some scenarios, some situations, this electron might go into this state, or this electron might come into this place. There could be some exchange in between. So in that particular scenario, what would happen, when the electron is moving from a lower orbit or lower energy state to higher energy state or higher orbit, means like for example, if you have an electron here, if you have electrons here, and suppose your electron, this electron wants to move here, lower energy orbit to higher energy orbit, definitely in such scenarios you are going into higher state, right? You are going into higher energy level. So if you want to go into higher energy level, you must have some energy present in them, you must have some energy absorbed in you, right? You must have that energy absorbed in you. Means like for example, if you are starting to do something work, you must have some energy present in you so that you can do some work. Because as you do your work, slowly gradually you will enter into a higher order state or higher energy level, where you need more and more energy so that you can conclude that work. Similar way, when this electron wanted to move from lower energy level, lower order state, or to higher energy level, it absorbs energy. And what happens in the scenario which happens in the opposite way? Scenario where the opposite thing happen. You have a nucleus, electrons are revolving around the nucleus. The electron from higher order state wants to move into lower order state. Suppose this electron wants to move into towards that particular orbit. So if this electron wants to move towards that particular orbit, higher order level to lower order level, if it wants to move from higher level to lower level, then definitely it will emit energy, right? Definitely it will emit energy. Like for example, you are working continuously, you started the work, you are working continuously. As you go and go, as you work and work, as you work continuously, your body will throw out energy from your particular your various organs help you to throw out energy from your body. Same thing happens here. Electron from a various state from higher level to lower level which emit energy. Means here one thing was specified very clearly by Bohr's model. If the electron wants to move from higher order to lower order, higher stationary state, lower stationary state, or lower orbit to higher orbit, it must absorb energy. And if it wants to move from higher level to higher higher orbit to lower orbit, it must emit energy. This was one thing that was explained by Bohr's model. Next thing that Bohr explained in his model was about the frequency of the radiation absorbed or emitted. This was actually a rule that Bohr described as Bohr's frequency rule. We all know that energy of a particular substance or a particular element depends upon the frequency of that particular object, wherever it frequency of that particular object, right? We understood it in the concept that Max Planck tried to explain E is equal to h nu, right? Now if you have two stationary states, two orbits, then definitely both of these orbits will have different energies. So the change in different frequencies will have different energies also. If they are having different frequencies, they will have different energies, and their Planck's constant will be the same. So what Bohr calculated from here, he derived one formula from here. If I have if I am having an energy state of E1 with nu1 as frequency and E2 as nu2 as frequency, and if I suppose see the difference between the higher state, this is suppose the higher state and this is suppose the lower state, then you can say if I do that E2 minus E1, I will get H nu1 minus H nu2. And if I take the H as common, and I will get nu1 minus nu2, H equals nu1 minus nu2. E2 minus E1, I can write it as change in energy, delta. Delta is a Greek letter which means change. So delta E means change in energy, right? Now if I change this particular scenarios values into some other thing, some other constant, then I can change this v1 minus v2 into a single energy level, right? I can change this energy into single energy level, like if I have nu equals sorry, I had this delta E equals h into nu 2 minus nu 1, where I can write this nu 2 minus nu 1 as h nu overall energy, overall frequency I mean. Then if I am finding the frequency of this particular concept, I can get delta E by h, where delta E means E2 minus E1, which I had already got. This rule was used to calculate the frequency by the change in energy occurred by different orbits, how much frequency an orbit can have, how much energy change might have occurred from going from one energy state to another energy state, that can be expressed by this particular rule, which was known by the concept Bohr's frequency rule. Okay, now the next condition that Neil Bohr expressed in his postulate was very much important, and it is one of the most important thing that he told. Angular momentum of electron was integral multiple angular momentum of electron was integral multiple of h by 2 pi, where h is the Planck's constant. Now what is angular momentum? What do you mean by integral multiple? That we will see. This is the main important thing that our Bohr's model stated. One of the most important thing that is being stated in the Bohr's model. Angular momentum is of an electron is an integral multiple of h by 2 pi. Now what is this concept, or what is this thing? Angular momentum. What do you mean by angular momentum? First we have to understand what is momentum. Momentum, I believe that you have studied in your 9th standard. Momentum is something that is the product of mass and velocity of an object. That is momentum, or you can say that is linear momentum. Momentum is the product of mass and which we can say as mass as well as velocity of an object. But angular momentum is something opposite to it. Angular momentum is actually the scenario where this angular momentum will be equal to product of inertia, which is actually the opposite of mass in another dimension, and product of mass of inertia as well as the velocity, angular velocity, which we can say this is known as the angular velocity. This is omega. This is a Greek symbol which is known as omega. Angular velocity is the another type of velocity which we consider for objects which are in a rotating state. Angular momentum is something, or a momentum that is required for something which is very small, very small in size, and it is in a rotational motion. So in that case we will find the angular momentum as mass of inertia and omega, or we can say the angular velocity. Now if we consider the angular momentum I omega, mass of inertia means mass of the particular object which we are taking. Here if we consider the mass of electron, we will have the mass of electron me, and also we will have the mass of electron we will have as in the case of me and r square. This is the mass of inertia. Now talking about angular velocity, the formula of angular velocity is omega is equal to v by r, because if we consider an object which is rotating somewhere, which is just rotating about something or revolving around something, we always need to consider the radius also in that case. So that's why we are considering radius here. So omega is v by r. So if we find the angular momentum, mass of electron into velocity square multiplied by velocity divided by radius, you can see you can v by r, here the linear velocity which we had told earlier, sorry, I just made a mistake, it is not v square, it was r square, right, it was r square. Now if we consider the about cancellation, we can cancel these both with these both things, then we will get mass of electron into r into v. So we will get m mass of electron vr mvr. If we just neglect this e, then angular momentum of an object, angular momentum of an object means m into v into r. That is what an angular momentum is. So what is actually Bohr's model trying to explain from it? Angular momentum mvr is always an integral multiple. Integral multiple means n times multiple of h by 2 pi, where h is the Planck's constant. Means the angular momentum which has this mass, velocity, radius will be equal to the product of this will be equal to the product of h by 2 pi, where n can be 1 2 3 anything but not 0. N can be 1 2 3 etc. Okay, so me is the mass of electron, v is the velocity of electron, r is the radius of the orbit where the electron is actually moving. This concept where we had the particular scenario about understanding the value of n, that n value was known by the name principal quantum number. The value of that n that we had said here, n equal to 1 2 3, it was known as the principal quantum number, which means if you have a structure of an element, suppose this is a nucleus, this was the first orbit where the electrons are there, we say it as n equals 1 because it is the very first orbit. Then if we have the second orbit here, then that will be, sorry, if we have this orbit it will be n equals 1, if we have this orbit it will be n equal to 2, where electrons are present according to the numberology. And similarly it will go on, n equals 3, n equals 4, n equals 5, it will go on. Okay, now that particular constant was known as principal quantum number. That's all you need to understand from this. These all things whatever are given, they are just somewhat complicated, you can read by yourself, no need. So the Bohr's model, you have to write the notes by your own. The Bohr's model that we explained now, you have to write the notes by your own. No need to write the notes of these things, they are just complicated substance. You need to, there is not, you just understand the basic things that had been explained here. Okay, now speaking of which, you need to understand, you must understand the limitations of Bohr model. This also you have to write by your own. Bohr model has its own limitation. Since Bohr model was only applicable for hydrogen atom, it was only applicable for hydrogen atom, a higher order element, suppose like if you want to explain about helium, if you want to explain about what you can say, carbon, boron, oxygen, nitrogen, fluorine, if you want to explain about 118th element, that could not be possible by Bohr model. It was only applicable for hydrogen atoms explanation. Means whatever we had studied was studied about hydrogen atoms model. Okay, second thing that Bohr model could not explain properly was about the ability of the atom to form molecules by chemical bond. Can the atom, hydrogen, H2 suppose, plus O2, we had studied in our smaller classes, H2 plus O2 means water, but Bohr model cannot explain that is this thing possible. Can hydrogen combine together with any other molecule to form by the help of chemical bond? Can even hydrogen form H2? This also was not explained. This also was not even explained. So this model could not explain something more properly in its own way. Okay, now speaking further, there were two model of atom which has so much significance in today's scenario. One is the dual behavior of matter. Dual behavior of matter, which was explained actually by de Broglie. He was a French scientist. He said that any particular matter, whatever the matter is, liquid, solid, gas, whatever the matter is, they will have two behavior, two particles present in them, two type of properties present in them. One is the particle nature property, and another one is the wave like property or wave nature of them. So this matter or this substance which is found in them are actually found in them very properly, and it can be explained with the help of formula lambda equals h by p. Lambda equals h by p, where lambda is the wavelength of the particular object taken, h is the Planck's constant, p is the linear momentum, where we know that p is equal to m into v. That's about dual behavior. That simple formula is enough to explain dual behavior of matter. And one more principle that has been explained was Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It was explained by German scientist Werner Heisenberg. He explained that it is impossible to determine simultaneously the exact position and exact momentum of an electron. If you have a atom with you, if you have an atom with you, then mind you, I would like to remind you one thing, that it is very much impossible, according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, it is very much impossible that you can determine the exact position of an electron, where the electron will be at that particular scenario or that particular time, or what could be the momentum or what could be the velocity or momentum of an electron. You cannot say that properly. That is what is explained by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and it is explained by a formula delta x, which is means the uncertainty in position. That delta means here, delta means uncertainty, not confirmed about where the position is. X means it defines the position. The momentum and the position was not explained. So momentum uncertainty into the delta p, uncertainty in the position and uncertainty in the momentum. This is about momentum, this is about position. This cannot be explained properly, and it always lies under the value greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. It always came under the value h by 4 pi, right? Or we said it could also come under for velocity. So if we know that delta x into delta momentum means m into v will be greater than or equal to h by 4 pi, which means if we are avoiding this delta change in mass, because mass of the electron will not change in our scenario, which we know very well. The mass of electron is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kilogram, which won't change whatever happened, whatever scenario happened. So if we avoid the change of mass, then we can put it as delta x into delta v. Change in velocity can happen greater than or equal to h by 4 pi m. This was the main uncertainty, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle being explained. Okay, I hope you understood the concepts about uncertainty principle. It's nothing more significant about it to know. So the homework for you today is you have to write the notes by your own. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, dual nature, we studied. We have to write that. We have to write about Bohr's atomic model, the postulate that had been explained, and also the limitation of Bohr's model. These things you have to write by your own. So that's all for today. I hope you understood the concepts. If you have any doubts, I repeat, any doubts, you can ask in the comment box. So stay safe, enjoy the days that you are having now, but also study, and have a nice day.